Matt Campbell is a guy who is often talked about at virtually any Power 4 college football opening that comes up as a guy of this could be somebody to watch. This could be a guy you could keep your eye on, etc. And he has yet to leave Iowa State. And there are two different kind of tracks there. There is the one track of people who understand why Matt Campbell would even be viewed as a hot commodity. And that kind of ebbs and flows because Iowa State's results haven't been super consistent under Matt Campbell. They have been better than they have almost always been at Iowa State, and yet have not ever really exceeded the expectations maybe that have been set for them. The other side of that are the people who question, why do I continually hear about Iowa State and Matt Campbell when they haven't won anything? They don't do anything. We talk about them as this program that is on the rise. Matt Campbell is a guy that should be viewed as a coaching star, and yet what has he won? And that doesn't include the context and the nuance that I think deserves to be talked about at Iowa State, because it is not an easy place to win. Coaches will tell you, draw a 5-hour circle around where you are. That is your recruiting base. Do you know how great the recruiting base of 5-hour circle around Ames, Iowa is? It is not great. The talent pool is not deep. It's not a bountiful harvest of fantastic football players. Plus, the teams that you are playing in your conference now recruit the hell out of Texas and Florida, and you are at a disadvantage. The last time Iowa State won a conference championship in football, this is not an exaggeration, William Howard Taft was the president. It was 1912, the last time Iowa State won a conference championship. So I think that puts into perspective, this is not a Matt Campbell thing. This is not a guy who has underachieved his way to a long-term tenure at one program. If you went 5 years at some schools that expect to win conference and national championships on the regular without winning a conference or national championship, there are question marks. If you haven't won a conference football championship since right after the Titanic sank, the expectations aren't really all that high. And it also shows that, like, either it's really hard to win at Iowa State, or they've hired the wrong guy like 18 times in a row, and maybe next time will be the one to do it. And that's sort of like that is a feeling that doesn't just register with college football. That's a long line of, whether it's football, whether it's college basketball, baseball, hockey, volleyball, whether it's the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA. If you continually screw this up, at some point, it isn't the guy that you like. It could be possible that Iowa State has hired the wrong coach 18 times in a row, or the much more likely option is that it's really difficult to win there. But the outlook seems to be really excited and optimistic for Iowa State in 2025. Now, we don't get the full picture of that because the Big 12 stupidly, and I verbally chastised them for several minutes on a podcast last month, they didn't set out, like, they're not doing a preseason poll. They're not saying, hey, here's who was projected to do what. There are people who will tell you that Iowa State is somewhere 1 through 4 in the Big 12 expectations coming into 2025. And justifiably so. They have an experienced offensive line returning. They have Rocco Becht at quarterback, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, maybe the most underrated, probably right there with Luke Altmaier from Illinois, the most underrated quarterback in the country. And if things go well for Iowa State this year, there's a really great chance that Rocco Becht goes to the NFL draft and is a first-round pick if they perform up to or exceed expectations. But when the knock on Iowa State has been, they haven't exceeded expectations. They haven't gotten over the hump to be a conference champion in the Big 12. Had the opportunity. Didn't get it done. I don't think it's unfair, despite all the challenges, despite all the history, despite all of the evidence that says this is a really hard place to win. At some point, you have to break through that, because otherwise it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say Iowa State is incapable of winning conference championships and Matt Campbell continues to not win conference championships, you kind of get a little bit off your back. Like the heat isn't really there on you because, well, I'm not the problem, the school is. And that continues to be why people will say, hey, Matt Campbell should be a guy you should watch out for openings at insert school here. Now, I'm here to tell you Matt Campbell is not going to just leave Iowa State for any old job. If he wanted to do that, he probably would have done that at this point. At the same time, the longer he stays at Iowa State and doesn't have that conference championship, that college football playoff berth on his resume, the more difficult sell that is to a fan base. Because I'm here to tell you, the average fan isn't sitting there dissecting, well, what's the traditional history of Iowa State? They just see, we just hired a coach who's never won a conference championship, never made a college football playoff, doesn't have players up for major awards. That's at the end of the day all most people will care about. So is this the year Iowa State gets over the hump? Is this the year that they are the college football playoff contender, or is this Exhibit Z in expectations were somewhat high for Iowa State? People continue to talk about how Matt Campbell is a program builder, great coach, young visionary, understands the game, great recruiter, just hasn't had it all fit together just quite yet. Because that seems to be kind of the modus operandi, if you will, of Iowa State under Matt Campbell. I will tell you, I think that he's a really, really, really good coach, because if you believe, and I do, that it's hard to win at Iowa State, and Matt Campbell has continually won at Iowa State, he just hasn't won the top prize, that means he's a good coach. If you're able and willing to figure it out where it's really difficult to do so, I think that shows your ability as a coach. I then think it makes it easier to believe that if you're going to be successful at Iowa State, you're therefore going to be better and more successful at a blue blood, a five-star program, a bigger Power 4 school, whatever the case may be. But I understand at the same time why the question marks remain. And if the question is this the year Iowa State gets over the hump and becomes a college football playoff contender, wins the Big 12? The alternative of that is, if not now, when? And I think that that's a fair question. And I think if it is not now, when? If you're an Iowa State fan, you have to question whether you are in purgatory, which is kind of the worst place to be for college football, because you're going to continually win 7, 8, 9, 10 games under Matt Campbell. But if you can't get it done with potentially a first-round quarterback, an experienced offensive line, are there question marks on the defensive side? Yes, absolutely. But a really physically gifted quarterback, when you didn't get over the hump with a quarterback who was, despite being the last pick in the NFL draft, and Brock Purdy, has played really well over his NFL career thus far. If you didn't get it done then, and if you don't get it done this year with a potential first-round quarterback, it's really hard to have faith that you're ever going to get it done, that you're ever going to get them over the hump, that you are going to hoist that trophy. I find it increasingly difficult that if not now, when? And that's an uncomfortable situation to find yourself, because it is the professional, personal encapsulation of bleep or get off the pot. Figure it out. Either do it or don't. Because if you're not going to do it now, I have to question if you're ever going to do it. And if you're never going to do it, it just grows apathy and tension in the fan base, and that is not good for anybody. So I'm not here to predict whether Iowa State is the team to beat in the Big 12 in 2025, whether they are a college football playoff contender, whether Rocco Beck can win the Heisman Trophy, or anything like that. I am here to pose the question: is this the year you shake that monkey off your back, get over the hump, and win the Big 12? And conversely, if it's not now, when are you going to be able to do it? I think those are fair questions to ask of Iowa State. Want to know your thoughts and expectations on the Big 12 as a whole and also the Iowa State Cyclones? Drop them in the comments below. Where do you see them finishing in the Big 12? And are they a college football playoff contender? Love to hear your thoughts. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.